At this time on the Citizens Community Forum, our topic at this time, food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Ukraine-Russian crisis. And coming up a little later on, we are going to be talking with two other individuals. We have Mr. Shiraz Khan from the Trinidad Farmers Union, as well as Dr. Janelle Joseph from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, on our topic at this time. So before we get into with those two individuals, we want to get a listen to the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, as he spoke on that very same topic, conversation with the Prime Minister, but in this regard, focusing on food security in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's get a listen to the Prime Minister, and we come back on the Citizens Community Forum.
Huge effect on us. It is having a huge effect on us. And as long as that disturbance takes place, we are to begin to steel ourselves, because we are going to be affected. Let me give you one little example. In Trinidad and Tobago, is doubles, talk about doubles and roti. We love flour in this country. Bread and oil. The bulk of the flour that we eat comes from the world market. Ukraine is one of the biggest producers of wheat in the world. So is Russia. Two of them fighting now, and the killing fields are in fact the wheat fields in Ukraine. It is now March. Spring planting is supposed to begin next month. Even the wheat that is available now in Ukraine, you can't ship it out because it can't get out through the ports in Odessa. Odessa is a battlefield right now. That is affecting the market. And if we manage to get that wheat into the market, thank God, but who is going to plant in the battlefield now? And that means if you don't plant in Ukraine now, next year, that production of wheat from Ukraine wouldn't be available. Argentina might be able to produce a bit more in the United States, but the market is not going to be the same if you lose the Ukraine. That's only one situation. And we're going to have to buy that wheat out there, paying the new price, because there's shortage or unavailability, the price is going to go up. We have to buy it out there, we bring it into Trinidad and Tobago, mill it into flour, and then of course, we can't expect to pay the same price we are paying when those increased costs. And I haven't added to the cost, the transportation, the energy cost, because everybody everywhere in the world who is providing us with anything that we import, they use energy to do it. Whether it's a part, a place to go, an airline ticket. So as long as the energy price is going up, the things that we are going to be buying are going to be influenced by those higher prices. And we are a country that imports a lot into our economy. So you watch the war on television, it's turmoil in the world, and nobody's insulated from it, nobody. So we have to make some decisions as to how, right, we are going to respond to it as we go along. For example, one of the things that has happened this is a COVID issue, where transportation costs have gone through the roof because the people who control containers just jacked the price up. A container that was costing $4,500 or $5,000 to get to Trinidad and Tobago from China, that price rose and it went up to about $17,000 in some instances. The container, not the goods, you know, the container. People who are involved in food production in this country have to go to America, pay an extra $5,000 to get an empty container available to put the raw material in, to bring it to Trinidad and Tobago to produce the food that we take for granted. Right? So those are the kinds of things that are happening. And we will have to adjust ourselves to, one, understand that we are price takers here. Two, produce as much as we could within our border. Or three, find substitute markets where they're available, but we are all out there with the rest of the world. It's not peculiar to us. It's something everybody else is experiencing, and therefore we are out there competing and jockeying with them for it, including food.
and welcome again to yet another edition of the Citizens Community Forum. Our objective is always to have an engaging, interactive and civil discourse, and in so doing help develop a culture of peace and understanding through constructive dialogue and, yes, citizens' participation. My name is Stephen Cummings, and our guests are persons who express views and opinions, perspectives of their own, and sometimes may not necessarily be that of the FBN network, the Citizens Community Forum, or that of the host. Our topics are also wide-ranging, but surely we can always find common ground on various different issues, and this evening is going to be a very important subject matter that we are going to be focusing on at this time. Well, the issue of food security on the global landscape has become one of renewed attention in recent weeks, if one is only to look at what has been happening as part of shaping the global conversation. We've seen a literal violent fight for sovereignty and territorial space between two of the world's most powerful nations, and no doubt, we're talking about Russia and the Ukraine. Some may describe this as a dialogue or rather a dangerous engagement of military adventurism, while food security and nutrition are left sadly at the back burner of issues. As members of the global community, many have been caught up in what can be described as well as a confusing vortex of fear, uncertainty and certain concerns when tensions rise, among producing and trading countries, causing market shifts on the side of supply and demand for commodities. Now, there must be some lessons to be learned for Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean when it comes to issues of food security. And even though we in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean may be described as a dot on the world map, we are not immune to external shocks. At this time on the Citizens Community Forum, our topic, food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. And to help us discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. Shiraz Khan, farmer and representative of the Farmers Union of Trinidad, of course, a well-known face to Trinidad and Tobago on matters of agriculture and food, nutrition. Also, I have with me Dr. Janelle Joseph, an agricultural extension graduate from the Department of Agriculture, Economics and Extension, Faculty of Food and Agriculture, UWI, St. Augustine Campus. And Dr. Joseph is the current co-chair of the Caribbean Agricultural Extension Providers Network, and she actively collaborates on several regional and local consultancy projects relating to capacity building, professional development, and knowledge management of regional extension and advisory service providers. Mr. Khan, Dr. Joseph, welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Well, we want to get right into the discussion this evening, and coming to think of it, I'm wondering if the global focus should really be about food insecurity, rather than food security. But we're going to discuss the issue and see how that leads, and we want to sort of get into some very important areas as well. Now, I saw somewhere it is said that food security, while referencing the availability of food and one's access to it, a household is considered food secure when its occupants do not live in hunger or fear of starvation. Yet, to me, that fear remains when, according to a statement I also saw from the World Resources Institute, that global per capita food production has been increasing substantially for the past several decades. But yet, even though we have been seeing, increase in production, there are also reports, that talks about starvation and food insufficiency, and there are so many other things that we want to address, at this time during the program. I want to sort of, open up the discussion and address this question to Dr. Joseph. Dr. Joseph, of course, we have seen where technology, we've been able to leverage in terms of the use of technology, but yet still there appears to be a problem, I suppose maybe not just here in Trinidad and Tobago or the Caribbean, but in the wider world, we seem to have this problem again. When we talk about food security, and we are not going to. We can talk about the Russian and the Russian-Ukraine crisis, but even before that, Dr. Joseph, we have had a problem when we talk about food security and sufficiency in that regard. Dr. Joseph.
Yes, well, thank you and good evening, and thank you for the question. To answer this question on the whole concept of food security, household food security, I think it really has to start from each individual having that ability to relate to actually what food security really means in its sense. All right, because I'm a strong advocate for the belief that if persons cannot relate to why something is happening, or if they can't relate to something in particular, then it's difficult for the necessary action or the necessary motions to address the challenges. All right, now of course we can speak about at length to the definition of food security, as you would have touched on the various pillars of food security: accessibility, availability, utilization, and stability. And all of those exogenous or external shocks that's taken place will definitely have an impact on food security attainment at the individual level and also at the household level. Once persons are not able to relate to this whole concept. Yeah, so I think that, it really has to start with the individual, and it has to start with them having that level or that notion of relatedness as well.
All right, relatability. Mr. Khan, I'd want you to respond to this question as well.
Okay. I would tell you, because I'm on the ground in agriculture, right? This problem, Ukraine and Russia didn't bring it on. It was a little bit before that, COVID, into the first year into COVID. And there's a point that I want to draw, that you may not be paying attention to: global warming, climate change.
Yeah, we plan to touch on that a little later on, but go ahead. Yes.
No, but that created the problem that we have, because we had the problem of climate change, where China had a serious climate change problem, and they were short on production of their own grains and food and so on for themselves. So they started buying up on the world market, right? Because they have the capital to do so, because they are a superpower. And then you have the situation with COVID coming in, where some countries, because of their serious problems with COVID, their production was dropping. They didn't have the ability, because of some farms were being closed in the US, especially the farms that producing a lot of grains and so on. And they also had climate change problems, where in one part of their country there was flooding, and the other part of the country there was fire, right? So we had this problem before the Ukraine and the Russia crisis.
Dr. Joseph, I want to sort of go back to that question of climate change. Now, it is something that I believe, continue to escape us as well, as Mr. Khan said. We can't be blaming, certainly, I don't think that the blame is really on what's happening so much, between in Europe, where we have this heightened tension and threats of boycotts and so on, which obviously would affect supply and demand. Certainly the issue of climate change is one of those areas that maybe we have been missing as well, Dr. Joseph.
Yes, well, definitely I will agree with that statement as well, because the Caribbean region in particular, we really have been grappling with the effects of climate variability, climate change. Even look at, right now we are supposed to be in the dry season.
Yes.
And for the past couple of days, there has been consistent rain, gray skies, so there are changes that are taking place that will affect the overall process or the overall actions of, the productive sector. I'm looking at it from agricultural side. And I just wanted to add to, what Mr. Khan was saying. One of my favorite quotes come from
Shiraz will be all right.
Shiraz.
Shiraz will be all right.
No problem.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes comes from, Wendell Berry, and he says, if you eat, you are involved in agriculture. So everybody at some point, be it directly or indirectly, we are being involved in agriculture just by that simple notion of eating, which will also tie into food security, nutritional security as well. So again, it boils down to the concept, the perception that persons have.
All right. Very important, analysis there. And we'd just like to remind our listeners and our viewers that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. Our topic at this time, food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. And I have with me Mr. Shiraz Khan, representative of the Farmers Union of Trinidad, and I have also Dr. Joseph, an agriculturist, professional in that regard, someone who continues to be involved in, the business of education and research, I imagine, looking at this whole, how we, how we manage and what it really means when we talk about food security and so on. And we're happy to have both our guests on at this time. So, Dr. Joseph, we are talking about what? Climate smart agriculture?
Yes, well, agricultural activities are, as I would say, adjusting or taking this path or trend of becoming climate smart because of what's taking place. We have hotter rainy seasons, drier rainy seasons, kind of like flip side, as you would say, all right? And farmers, those involved in agricultural productive activities, they are very, very innovative, and they, using their indigenous knowledge that they have been practicing in climate smart agriculture, right? So I don't think we, need to, discover that notion with them, because farmers, they have been engaging in climate smart agricultural activities, years ago, and they continue to do so now. So it is one of the reasons why I would say we also have a consistent supply of local produce, at the availability in the markets and local spaces.
All right, let me take the question again. I want to just stay on this issue of climate change, because just for a little while longer, and I know Mr. Khan, you raised the issue. How much how much involvement? Now, I heard what Dr. Joseph just said, but how much involvement, are our farmers really, how much of involvement are they in this, and understanding, not just the science, but the need to be climate smart and to be involved in climate smart agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago?
And to support Dr. Joseph's point, our farmers have been innovative enough, and our people in this country has been innovative enough to deal with this situation. We had a situation last year similar to this, Dr. Joseph. Last year we didn't have a dry season. We didn't have bushfires. And hence the reason why we had so much of wild meat on the market, because we had that situation where the bushfires couldn't destroy some of our wildlife. And we'll have the same problem this time around. Now, there are certain things that we as farmers will work with, because here what's happening, and this is just a piece of education for us all. There are some communities in this country, places like the Shagaramas farmers, the Guava Road farmers, Tabakit, around West South. These are farmers that only could plant in the dry season. They can only do farming because the area floods, right? So what happened is that you realize for the past month or so, you're seeing tomatoes. I live in Central, so I see tomatoes. You say how you want, right?
Okay, Mr. Khan, yes.
I see tomatoes. What happened is that we had tomatoes reach £7 for $20. 7 and 8 pounds for $20, because you had a lot of people planting tomatoes at the beginning of the dry season, coming out of December land preparation, and we have a lot of tomatoes on the market. So which means now there are some things that the authorities need to do, because a farmer will choose a crop to plant based on his knowledge and his likeness. But
Yes.
he do not have the idea of what farmers in Tabakit planting from Arangwed or Shagaramas. We need to have some commodity structure within the organization, be it NAMDEFCO, be it the university, be it the Ministry of Agriculture. Because what happening is that why it is that we have a glut of tomatoes on the market at this point in time, and we are short on other commodities.
Right.
So we need to have a structuring of the markets, and the farmers or the farmers organization cannot do that without the help of the authorities. And I am saying NAMDEFCO is the fittest people together with the university, because they will have the knowledge of the areas and the testing done and evaluate.
Well, Dr. Joseph is here, so I know that she's hearing you as well. But Dr. Joseph, I want to just go back to you, we're looking at this whole business, and I'm always one to follow the science behind just about, I suppose, everything that we do. When we look at things such as heavy metal accumulation in soil and water, as possibly one major area or causing what I would call by inorganic contaminants, their presence in agricultural soil in high qualities, have also impacted our, the quality of the food that we produce. I'm sure that is that something that you would have found as well, maybe in research, when we look at agriculture.
Well, to answer that question, I'm not the expert in the soil science arena, but what I can say is that, having these inorganic compounds, yes, they may be present, they will be present because of the whole nature of these organic compounds. There's something called a half-life, which means that it takes, somewhere over 500 years, 500 plus years for these compounds to be disseminated or
dissolved.
Right, so it's something that's consistently there. Now, of course, because of the innovations that have been taking place in agriculture, we have now been seeing transitioning away from, agricultural activities where it depends solely on the actual, planting on the soil per se, but moving more towards those soil-less activities, hydroponics, aquaponics, etc. Even you can have like those greenhouses, for example, where you can control or have quote unquote organic, so to say, soil availability, right? So which can minimize those issues that you would have raised in terms of the inorganic compounds and the pollution that may be present in the soil to affect the production, right? And again, taking on the spin of the whole innovativeness of these farmers, they use their indigenous knowledge, experiences to be able to overcome this challenge, right? So I think, we really need to give them a lot of credit, a lot of support as well. There is definitely a big need for those workable relationships between those involved in the knowledge management sector, right? The universities, research institutions, etc., as well as governments, right? Those who will be putting the policies and bringing the actions into reality that can benefit the producers, given, the challenges that may have been mentioned with climate change, climate smart agriculture, the pollution, etc.
All right. Mr. Khan, in what more effective ways can we support the concept of home gardening, kitchen gardening, which is also, has had, the potential to, or have the potential to really maintain, stability, food security, in what other ways? Dr. Joseph mentioned some of the areas there, but, being on the ground, what are the ways that you think we can effectively, give greater support to this particular, concept when we talk about home gardening, kitchen gardening?
Yeah. Okay. Could I just step back a bit to the question you posed to Dr. Joseph?
Sure.
If you don't mind. What happened is that why we have these contaminants, soils, and all of that, right? Our farmers have most of the arable, the good quality arable land, on successive governments from way back when, continue to do not have a proper land use policy. So the arable land are put into housing and other things rather than given to agriculture. You see where people are now taking lands that are not arable and trying to rebuild it using a lot of chemicals. And so you have a situation where sometimes we overput, because what happening is that we are misinformed, and the people who advise us are already also misinformed. So sometimes we hurt more than we try to do good. But coming back to your question, I will tell you this: COVID has shown to a lot of people home gardening. I can tell you that because one of the things I sell is manure, right? And during the COVID time, especially during the lockdown, when you had those the hours of operation between 6 to 6 and so the curfew,
yes,
you have people who was not working and they was getting frustrated, and some of them took the frustration and started their home gardening. I live in the back of 500, edible 5,000, sorry, right? And what happened is that a lot of people, because I did 1 or 2 programs talking about how to plant this and that and the other on the radio and so on.
Yes.
And people were actually coming and using containers, and because they don't have the land in the housing, and they were actually planting their little seasoning and 1 or 2 plants and so on. So home gardening, because of the COVID, have gotten people into producing. And what we should be doing is encouraging people to at least some of those who have little spaces of land, that we should not be only concentrating on concrete. But what happened is that we should have more programs trying to get people, rather than looking for the political clout, to say that, oh, we're getting people to plant or we're giving away plants. That's not it. We need to work with the people and educate people on how to continue to grow things without soil. Like Dr. Joseph was saying, we can use containers. There are different tiers of containers that we could know that people have developed those containers. All those buckets, those plastic buckets that people are throwing away, we can now use those things. And there's so many innovations taking place. In fact, I saw somebody use a Gelita bottle, a discarded bottle, and putting a plant and turn it upside down, and growing a plant, and the plant turn it away and come upwards. And people are using those innovations.
Right. So we see, so we are seeing where out of a crisis, we are pushed, towards, using, I suppose, that creative, that innate, creativity that I suppose some of us never knew that we had. But,
Trinidad, my brother Trinidadians will create and come up with ideas. We are trainees, huh? We are trainees.
Yes, certainly. Dr. Joseph, are you satisfied with, as we're talking about support, for and looking for ways as to how we can, better impact on home gardening, kitchen gardening? Are you satisfied? And this is not a political question. Are you satisfied with the level of state input in protection and, when it comes to even our locally produced foods here in Trinidad and Tobago?
To answer that question, politically correct, I would say yes. All right, because governments come, governments go. There is some level of support or some level of encouragement, incentives, etc., that will be geared towards the local suppliers, local production, that area. However, what I think, can be or should be streamlined is really the making it more accessible, the availability of it, the timeliness as well. These are some challenges that may need to be tweaked and worked out or to be contended with.
Yes. Right. So again, that's your perspective. And Scan, I know that you have been a strong advocate, for agriculture, and seeing that we are not just food sufficient, but we are also an educated population. And you did mention, the nutrition part of it. We do have a situation now where schools are going to be opened in a larger capacity in terms of getting more of our students, our children out, and we do have a school feeding program as well. And I'm wondering if you are of the view that that maybe we need to pay a little more attention towards even the schools, and again we go back to the issue of nutrition. Do you believe that enough is being done in terms of supporting that sector of our economy?
I think we have lapsed a bit on that, because what have happened in the past, right? And now I am not saying I know everything. It's just that I'm involved in it so long, and I'm trying to be part of it long time now.
Yes.
In 2007 and 2008, we went to the school feeding program, right? And they were telling us that we have to compete with the imported meat prices, right? Okay, you have chicken that is not healthy for the school children, but yet they find themselves into the program because they are cheaper, right? Because they are cheaper. And let me give you the example of the lamb that we were trying to get them to go into the school program. They said, look, we buy boneless lamb at X, Y, and Z prices. And I don't know if you could, because it was almost half the price of what it cost us to produce it anyway. Because we assemble things here. We don't do too much growing of anything. Because with the demise of Caroni Limited, we lost the citrus industry, we lost the molasses industry, we lost the rice industry, all those, and the bagasse, all those, Dr. Joseph will tell you that all of those byproducts used to sign itself into the agriculture sector. So what happened is that we have a situation where we cannot compete with the imported, because the imported meats and so on are heavily subsidized. They are heavily subsidized. In fact, some farmers are paid in foreign countries, in Europe and North America. They are paid not to produce because they don't want to have a situation of overstock, right? So we have a situation where our people are growing chickens and so on, and they were not getting it to sell onto that program because they were being fed cheaper products, right? I am saying is that there are certain things in this country. It's not that you want to make the farmer rich, but what you want to do is to ensure your children are having a better meal at the end of the day. How in God's world could we be giving a child every day a chubby? Why we can't give them half of a chubby of goat's milk or cow's milk? Right? Why it is that we and because the Guelph University and the other universities prove that soft drink is one that create hatred and vengeance into people.
All right.
I have the article here, but what I'm saying is that
I know that's another discussion, but
I can prove it. I have the article from the Johns Hopkins University. If you do Google Johns Hopkins and University of the effects of soft drink, you will see it.
Yes, but
so
I know
what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying.
Okay, I would allow you to develop that point. Yes.
Yeah, it will create it. But let me tell you something. Think about it, right? How simple it is that when we started, and I don't know if you know this, Mr. Cummings, when we had the Palaseco Agricultural Enterprises with a pasteurizing plant producing pasteurized milk to feed to the school feeding program, one mishap and we throw it out of the window. Millions of dollars are spent on that project. But what happened is government changed, and we never even re-looked at that project in 2010. So we have a situation where people are not taking up the importance of the country or the citizens rather than other people to satisfy their needs, probably politically.
All right. I know, Mr. Khan, you raised something there that I believe we can have in another program. The impact of negative impacts, I suppose, on students, and I suppose the young persons, when you are simply not eating right, and you can see where maybe even societal violence, impacts on that. But
it's called food fraud.
Okay. Okay, that's another discussion I believe we can have at another time, and I'm sure Dr. Joseph would agree as well that that there is this correlation, there's this relationship between, I suppose, what you eat and how you how you function generally as an individual, as a human. So that I mean there's research to support that as well.
Science.
Yes. Yes, but what we want to do now, Dr. Joseph and Mr. Khan, we do have just some commitment. We want to take a short break at this time, and when we come back, we will continue the discussion.
Prime Minister, good evening to you, and welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Good evening, my brother, and all your viewers, listeners. Happy to be here with you. Mr. Cummings, I think Trinidad has to be proud of their severe oversight.
Mr. Cummings, you were asking about our operational, you asking about it from an operational standpoint.
First of all, good evening, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on your program. A very good evening to all of your listeners.
Every Wednesday, join our 1-hour current affairs program, the Citizens Community Forum. Topics are wide-ranging and echoes opinions and voices of our society. Whether it be leadership, governance, health, crime, politics, or social issues, we can all have a civil and constructive discussion inside the Citizens Community Forum every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM with Stephen Cummings.
Last week when I heard that there were 16 children sleeping in the cell in a police station, that was something that was unacceptable to me.
The current constitution of the Public Services Association, there have been concerns about how the constitution...
If you are restructuring the PSA, the only way you can restructure the PSA itself is through constitutional reform.
If the minister does not accept our request and revalidate this license, we'll have to be heading to court.
Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
And welcome back to the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. This time we are discussing the topic, food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago, and in the face of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. And I have two guests with us at this time on the program. We have Dr. Joseph, and I have Mr. Khan Shiraz Khan, a well-known voice and face as well in Trinidad and Tobago on the business of agriculture, food, nutrition, and we're also happy to have Dr. Joseph with us discussing this very important matter. Dr. Joseph, an agricultural extension graduate from the Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension Faculty of Food and Agriculture, UWI St. Augustine. Dr. Joseph, Mr. Khan, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Well, at the university level, we are, actively trying. We have our various outreach activities. Of course, the research that is conducted at the university level, we try to transfer those technologies to those who really, need to utilize or benefit from, the various forms of research. Now, one point I wanted to add or include is when Shiraz mentioned, they prefer foreign tomatoes, asparagus, etc. on the grocery shelves. Now, it also all boils down to consumerism as well as consumers' perception, right? We are, like it or not, being bombarded by this whole information age. Everything is, World Wide Web, internet, social media, etc. So that really has a level of influence on persons as well as the choices that they would make.
My next question was going to be, how has even online shopping been impacting consumers' tastes and choices as well as purchasing patterns?
Well, everyone really has gravitated more towards this whole convenience style, online because of, as COVID-19 pandemic, we had these disruptions, more online shopping, digital transformation, etc. All right, now, if you have the preference of purchasing something online, you also have to contend with, the delays that may take place in terms of, customs, clearing at ports, the suppliers, freight, etc. All right, which will have an impact on the availability as well as the prices that the produce or the item will be available for. All right, now we have a lot of local potential, lots of campaigns that are locally inclined. All right, so again, it has to boil down to communication, education, as well as getting persons stimulated to want to take that leap of faith and go with something local rather than the notion of imported or foreign is best.
All right, so foreign is not always the best, especially when it impacts on your food import bill. Mr. Khan, I've been monitoring as we talk about the food import bill. I've been monitoring for many years the various budget allocations, and every year for the last, let's say, 10 years, I don't want to go further back, but at least I can say for the last 10 years, we have seen a very meager, financial allocation being given towards agriculture. I mean, if you check the budget statements, expenditure, income and expenditure, and you would see where agriculture have always been the least of the ministries. And I'm wondering who is really responsible for that? Is it the government, or should the call be really made from or coming from farmers like yourselves to indicate that, to say, well, look, we are in the business and we are on the ground. We are the ones who are, in the use of the land, and we are the ones that can shape the policies, put forward recommendations. Because why I'm saying this is that it can't be left up to the policymakers or to any government or any administration, as a matter of fact, to say, well, listen, we're going to give you 2 million this year, next year we're going to give you 1, and the following year we're going to give you $500. Who is really to be blamed when we have that kind of mathematics, in terms of the numbers, going towards agriculture, which I said, over the many budgets have been very, very small.
You had me 2 years now on your budget program discussing this agriculture thing, and I keep telling you that and other sectors, right? So, and then they stop inviting us because we keep coming on with the same thing and saying, well, why it is that they're calling us here? We're telling you what it is desired for us to see betterment in the sector, but we're not giving it. So then we come in, we spinning up in mud. But what I will tell you something, I want to share something with you, right? At the end of the day, right, if agriculture is not treated as a serious industry, as an industry, not as a bastard child of the economy, not as the bastard child of the economy. We got to treat agriculture as a business. I'm not talking about them farmers in Bossop Marino and old vans, or they're only complaining about land and they want land. No, there is certain things that the administration got to do for us, right? And there are certain things that we got to do. We got to improve our techniques. We got to improve our quality, like in my case, my pedigree of my animals and so on. We got to upgrade in terms of how we're doing things, because we can't be running every day and using a hoe and a fork and a shovel, and we don't buy a whacker or something like that. We have done that. We have elevated ourselves.
Dr. Joseph, treating agriculture as a business, we have not done, even though there have been attempts, I suppose, in some areas, we have not done very well in that area. Are you of that view? Because I mean, we talk about we talked about even the budget, allocations that we see every year, and we don't have that many businesses around that really are into that business aspect of agriculture, and which has that when we talk about food sufficiency in Trinidad and Tobago.
Definitely, and to add to that, we need to also give credit where credit is due. Firstly, all right. I mean, if we have this notion of farmers as working in the hot sun, back breaking, toiling, burst of clothes, as was mentioned, right? Then of course that perception will continue to prevail itself. Right now, if we really take a closer look, I mean, if we don't eat, we can't function at all. And who are the providers who, starting at the basis, at the very, very basic, and any agricultural system, the producers, the farmers, right? And that's why I always like to say, if we consider the quote, if you eat, you are involved in agriculture, having that mindset, then of course, I believe the sky is the limit, right? We really need to change that perception. All right, we need to really change the view of agriculture, have a professionalized view of those involved in the production sector, those involved in those productive activities, particularly because they play a very vital, crucial role.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, definitely, yeah. I agree with that statement.
And we just like to remind them. We'd just like to remind our listeners and our viewers that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, and we're having a very important discussion with Mr. Khan, Shiraz Khan, and Dr. Joseph, and we are looking at the subject matter of food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Mr. Khan, you wanted to say something?
Dr. Joseph, I'm going to make a statement. It's not sexist, it's a fact. We need to make agriculture more sexy.
Well, yes.
But you know, not only that. I was going to also, look at how we can really make agriculture attractive to more attractive to young people. It has always been the view of this, as you mentioned before, agriculture being this back-breaking, activity. And I think that maybe not enough is being done in the side of, attracting young persons to the sector. What do you think can be done, Dr. Joseph, in bringing more of those, of that sector of our population into agriculture?
Agriculture is not only about dealing with crops and livestock, right? We also have, the value added activities. We also have, those processing activities, manufacturing, right? The input supplier relationships. In terms of agriculture, we also have those necessary support agencies, right? Through the extension and advisory service providers. All right,
what energy companies might call upstream and downstream.
We need to expand our view as to what really agriculture refers to. Is not simply just about crops, dealing with crops and taking care of livestock. No, there are other activities that are engaged in agriculture. Now we also have the advent of digital agriculture, utilizing drones, artificial intelligence, technology to help boost agriculture. All right, so it really is an expansive sector that really has to be taken into account.
Mr. Khan, attracting young people, more of our young persons into the business of agriculture. You started out the discussion saying that it is not it has not been seen as very attractive in that area.
Well, what happened is that I know there's a number of young people, and you see it on the television and so on, that they got involved in the problem using agriculture.
But they're not in the large numbers that I suppose we'd all like.
But Dr. Joseph said it quite clearly, and you have said it, because if it is that you live with your grandparents, you see your grandparents up in the land waiting for land tenure. Your parents had the same problem, always expecting a bulldozer to come and take them out, or somebody claiming the land, and you're not going to want, because one of the things is that people always choose to educate the children.
I hear you, Mr. Khan. And this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. I'm talking with Dr. General Joseph from the University of the West Indies, and also Mr. Khan, Shiraz Khan, of the Farmers Union of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I wanted to, before we have just a few minutes again before we close the program, I want to address the issue of rising food prices. I think that we can't end the program without giving some focus as to when we talk about rising food prices, maybe where the blame can be placed. I was looking at some information which has said that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, in a report I saw, said perhaps the single biggest factor contributing to higher food prices is the fact that nearly every industry has been experiencing since the pandemic. There are not enough workers to, for example, offload containers in the ports, for example, and not enough truck drivers to move the food to distributors and stores. Is saying that this is one of the some of the key areas, and also it talks about tariffs, and product scarcity, and especially now, with what's happening out in Europe, we may see even more of that, of the intensity of that happening, leading to higher food prices. And there's always the question of who is to blame for the rising price of food. We go to the grocery this week, something may be $2. We go the next week, it might be $2.05. And I know that there's also been the discussion about a price watch group. I'm not sure if that's the correct name, but I was aware that there was a unit that was set up, quite apart from the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, to monitor prices. Mr. Khan, I'm not sure if you would have remembered that at some time.
I know about that. Yeah.
Yes.
I know about that.
But that has not worked. Yeah.
I can give you the okay. It's not that I'm old. I'm just starting very young, In 2007, at that time, I was vice president in Phyton, in terms of agriculture, right? And we fought for Prices Commission in 2007. That big 2-day session we had with then Prime Minister Patrick Manning in Trinity, finding the solution, right? So we did fight, and we did get a Prices Commission that worked.
Price Control Commission, yes.
Headed by Dr. Roddock, right? I think it was Professor Roddock now, yeah. So what happened is that it worked from 2007 to 2010. And when that administration came in 2010, they leave the committee, but they never handled any resources. It never worked.
Mr. Khan, let me bring in Dr. Joseph here. Dr. Joseph, this is a difficult one. I mean, you can't really control people's tastes and preference. We talked earlier on about this move towards online shopping, this new craze that started some years ago, in earnest, here in Trinidad and Tobago. How can we maneuver? Trying to I suppose, look at ways where we can, I suppose, be smarter shoppers in that regard.
Well, simply we can try to start at the education level, right? Get persons to be more informed, so they can make more informed decisions. We can only try to influence, right? We can't control, we can't dictate, but we can try to actively influence. Now, in trying to influence them, you must keep up your end of the bargain, right? And make sure that your local supplies are in abundance. I know that it's easily available, etc. So that when that interest is piqued, they can capitalize on it.
Right, Dr. Joseph, General Joseph, and Mr. Khan, thank you both for sitting in with us on the Citizens Community Forum this evening. Our topic: food security, creating a buffer for Trinidad and Tobago in the face of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And of course, this is a topic that we would never have really enough time to really discuss, but I'm sure we will have another opportunity at another time when we can go into some other areas. Thank you both for being with us, and
thank you very much for having us.
And
thank you. My
it has
pleasure.
been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Right.
It was a famous poet who once said, "They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Words there from famous poet Martin Niemöller, 1892 to 1984.